What's up, Thumpers? Welcome back to another episode of Hyper Heroes here on Hyper Rabbit Power Go.
Fine,
Hector,
I'll
had
do
a
it
thought.
by myself. I'll do it by myself, guys.
Do it by myself.
I'll do it.
No? Okay.
Thank you guys so much for joining us. Welcome to another episode. First of all, I want to say thank you to everybody who has been checking out the podcast. I finally announced that the podcast is officially on Spotify. Thank God. Bless
All
everyone.
I do is listen to stuff on Spotify.
Yeah.
So I'm glad
cool.
it's finally been ported over.
Our podcast is literally on like 12 different platforms.
Yeah.
So whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher Radio, it's all over the place. I will link everything down in the description so you know where to find it.
Yep.
If you can't find it there, literally just search Hyper Heroes in whatever platform of choice, and it should pop up. If it doesn't,
now you
can complain.
no excuse not to listen to us.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Also, another week of Chonies. Or not MeUndies. MeUndies. MeUndies is back with another week of sponsorship. Thank you guys so much. A lot of enthusiasm in the comments about that. I'm glad that Chonies worked.
Yeah, they need to come up with a special limited edition Hyper Heroes Luchador print.
That's right.
Mis Chonis.
Mis
Can we
Chonis,
pitch
either
that?
tacos. Look, I got taco print.
That'd be so
And
good.
they need to come up with a taco choni.
We
Or,
should.
listen, I'm going to get a little,
Uh-oh.
but you got, your options are tacos or burritos.
Okay.
What's coming out of your
Okay.
Speedo? You've
Yep.
got Mis Chonis.
You've got Mis Chonis.
Mis Chonis.
So you can decide. You can decide what you want.
It's up to you.
Yeah.
Or any kind of Mexican food. Or nachos. Whatever you want.
Whatever you
want.
like. Just
They should just have us come in and design a campaign for them.
Yes, they should.
The point is, it's
I would
all
love that.
delicious in there.
That's
That's all
right.
I'm saying.
It's all a bunch of
delicious.
goodness.
That's all I'm saying.
It's like a snack.
That's right. It's like a good
like a
snack. If
Sometimes-
you're looking for new underwear for yourself or your significant other, you can go to MeUndies.com/hyperRPG or use HyperRPG in the cart. You can get 15% off your first purchase. They also have socks, loungewear, and a whole bunch of stuff. I think I'm going to be getting something for me and my special someone. for Valentine's
Really?
Day.
Get some matching chonies, huh?
Yeah. I think
Valentine's
it'll be
Day's
fun.
coming up.
It is.
Yeah.
Actually, this is the perfect occasion. Stock
right.
up.
Do
wear
it now.
6 different pairs in one night.
That's right. Wow.
Yeah.
Ooh, costume
I mean,
change.
nice.
make it
Costume
fancy.
change.
Make it. That's an idea for you, Adam. Make
Because
it-
it's all about
In my Michael Myers
presentation.
mask.
It's all about presentation.
Just
You
lay
have
it
a
out there.
spread of chonies.
Variety is the spice of life.
Spread the chonies out on the bed and say, I like that, I like that, I like that.
I like that.
And then make something around that. Be creative.
Good sweet Lord. I hope they're paying us all the money for
Me
this.
too. Your SO is going to be like, these boring old genitals. And you'll go, wait.
Check these out.
Check these out. Whoop, presentation.
Just unroll the arsenal.
Ooh. Huh? Well, brother, not these again. Wait. These chonies.
Oh
got
my
'em. We
God.
got 'em.
Also, if you're watching this on Saturday, I want to let you know that tomorrow on Sunday, or if you're watching this on Sunday today at 12 p.m. Pacific time on twitch.tv/hyperRPG, it is the first HyperDrive of 2019. It is Survivor themed. There's going to be a whole lot of RPGs happening throughout the day. You're going to see people like Cameron Rice, Emily Jacobson's going to be there, Zach and the crew will be there. It's going to be a whole lot of fun.
Have they announced
so make sure you
which
tune in.
RPGs are going to be there?
Yes. There was a
No?
mailing.
Yes, no?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there was a mailing list that went out.
Oh,
Okay.
awesome.
So
All right. All right.
Let's run them down. Are we doing...
What you got?
Zach?
Zach, do you want
We're doing Firefly? Firefly.
Firefly's one.
What else?
Well, my
Survivor. Survivor with Cameron. That's right.
Okay.
Not Lost, but Survivor, the game show.
Yes. That's right. It's the Ruby Squad for Pencils and Parsecs, the
Great.
Star Wars RPG.
So better.
Sorry, Hector.
That's fine. Wow.
Oh.
10 Candles Japanese
That is
Battle
Battle Royale
Royale.
That is
version,
Survivor.
huh?
That
Nice.
is
It's going to be a
Survivor.
lot of fun.
Dang.
So if you've seen HyperDrive before, you know it's 12 hours of a whole lot of fun and a whole lot of
man.
craziness. It's the first time we're doing it in this new studio, so that should be very
I
interesting.
would say that this is the most important hyperdrive.
Probably.
Community's got to come out for
That's
this
right.
one.
And I expect Zach to get no sleep for the next 48 hours. Yeah! It's going to be a good old time.
It's good times.
Also, Patreon. We're in the middle of working on the Patreon, revamping the Patreon. There's
Yeah.
been a lot of feedback from you guys on that as well. I've been going through and figuring out sort of what we can do, how we can change it, what we can update. I have a new post that's going out that you could probably see now. I'll link it down below as well. Sort of talking about what we want to be doing with the Patreon this year and how we're going to try to get towards new goals and how that's going to affect the tiers and all that sort of stuff. We have a commentary that we owe you guys for Darkman, which we'll
That's
figure out when
right.
we're going to do
We
that.
need to film
That
that.
will be a fun one. I think that's going to be that's
I
going to be
haven't
a really
seen.
fun
I
one.
don't think I've ever seen Darkman.
I've never seen Dark.
All the way through. I've seen
Bro!
pieces
I've
of it.
never seen it.
Oh,
excited,
this is going to be
dude.
fun.
'Cause
I love Darkman.
I love Sam Raimi, dude. Like,
yeah, and
like,
it's
I'm
Liam
down.
Neeson's.
Oh yeah, but isn't he
Liam
only
Neeson's.
at the? No, it's. I know who it is at the end. I know who it is
Yep,
at the end.
yep,
That's
yep.
the
Speaking of,
part I seen.
what's
I
it called?
love
Liam Neeson's?
No. Speaking of superhero movies that nobody really talks about anymore. Ghost Rider was on TV the other day.
Oh, the first one?
The first one?
Oh,
It's
yeah,
bad, right?
the first one. Oh, I forgot how terrible that movie was.
Yeah.
Happy 12-year anniversary.
It's so
It's
bad.
such a shame
It's such a shame.
because Ghost Rider is one of the coolest comic book characters.
Hey, it's okay, man.
Right.
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. did him justice.
Yeah.
No, they did. But I'm just saying,
Yeah.
like, watching
Movie's
that
rough.
movie is a
Yeah.
pain.
Yeah.
It was just, I remember, like, there was no pleasure in me watching this movie when, like, it was just
It was
2 days ago.
2007.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is a good signifier of like that's the last
times,
movie
yeah.
of that generation of like from Blade to Ghost Rider.
Right.
Free universe.
Is when
Right.
superhero movies came back,
Right.
but not all of them were good,
Right.
and a lot of them were very bad.
Yes.
This movie felt like a bunch of old movie executive heads were just like, oh, that looks cool.
Yep.
Boom. Put them in there. Generic
Yeah.
action movie. It was.
We pretty much
Yeah.
were in the era where like Warner Brothers and Sony were dominating
Yeah.
with Batman
Yeah, you're right.
and Spider-Man movies.
Yeah, absolutely.
Regardless
and
of what people
Fox
thought about
with
them.
X-Men.
Yes
And
and
this
no,
was a-
because
this
they
was a
also did
Fox-
things like Daredevil and Elektra, and people were
Yeah.
like, ugh.
Yeah, this felt even more
absolutely.
primitive than all that.
It
Yeah.
did.
So yeah,
You're
it's just-
totally right because I love Nicolas Cage.
Actually, and that
You
also
know?
is a Sony movie, Ghost Rider.
It
Now that I
is.
think about it. Yeah.
Every I love Nicolas Cage. He's obviously a fantastic actor, depending on where you put him. I love him in so many great comic book movies: Kick-Ass, Teen Titans Go, Spider-Man, Spider-Verse. Like
Yeah.
the dude is great when he's utilized correctly.
Yes.
But the mere fact that he got cast as I was going to say Danny Ketch. It's not Danny Ketch. It's Johnny Blaze.
Johnny Blaze.
The
yeah.
first Ghost Rider.
Yes,
Danny
Johnny.
Ketch is the second one from the
okay,
90s.
okay.
The fact that he got cast as that and
Yeah.
movie studio execs or whoever was like, yeah, great. It's like,
Perfect.
stop.
Yeah.
Already, that's bad casting.
bad.
Already,
Bad.
this is
Look,
going to be.
he was already going to be Superman.
Yeah.
I know, but
Yeah.
but even that, it's
Yeah.
again, I love the guy, but I'm like,
Sure.
just
It's just
because
a
you
fit.
just like I love superheroes.
Yeah.
If I somehow got the acting clout of a Nicolas Cage in the mid '90s, what's that equivalent today to today? Channing Tatum? I don't know. Whatever power
No.
rankings. Nicolas Cage mid
He was
'90s.
up there.
Who is that today? What, Leo DiCaprio? No, a little
No,
lower
he's
than.
not that
What,
high.
who is he? Who is he?
Who is
It's not
he?
George Clooney. Who is he? It's a male actor, kind of an indie.
Liam
into
Liam
a-
Neeson's.
Liam Neeson's a little bit. You get that kind of acting clout. If
Yeah.
I have that acting clout in the mid '90s, as much as I love superheroes and passion projects, I'm not
Right.
going to be like, dude, we should do this movie, and I should
Yeah.
be the guy.
Yeah.
If it were up to me, my acting clout would be like, we should do a Pokemon movie.
Right.
I'm not going to be, hey, I should be Ash. It's
Right,
like, Hector,
right.
you're a 31-year-old man.
Yeah.
I love Pokemon. It's like,
Dog,
stop.
put a hat on me.
Cálmate.
19.
So like,
Yeah.
so the fact that Cage sought that Superman, and I believe he loved Superman,
Right.
I don't think he was appropriately cast for
Right.
that.
I agree.
Right.
And the
I
same,
agree.
Ghost
Same
Rider,
in
same
Ghost
thing.
Rider, yeah.
But Big Daddy and Kick-Ass,
So good.
perfect.
Absolutely.
Right? Superman, the voice in Teen
Yes.
Titans Go to the Movies,
Uh-huh.
perfect.
Great.
And Spider-Man
Spider-Man
Noir,
Noir,
perfect.
Perfect.
So, and a bunch of his movies, Matchstick Men,
Yeah.
God, like all of his best
Face
stuff.
Off.
Face Off.
Face
It's like
Off,
perfect,
The Rock,
perfect.
The Rock,
All those
yeah.
movies. All those movies are
But
great.
he's had such an interesting career,
Yeah.
a lot of ups and downs, a lot
Yeah.
of like people are like, man, that was a questionable choice, or that's
Yeah.
not a great commenting,
Mhm.
whatever. And Ghost Rider, I think, was definitely a passion project for him. I remember being at a comic convention in between the two Ghost Rider movies after the first one came out,
Yeah.
and it was what it was.
Yeah.
Some dude went up and asked an awkward question when Nicolas Cage was on a panel talking about a comic that he was working on with his son. And this guy was like, I just want to say I'm a stunt racer, and I would love to like somehow be involved in the next Ghost Rider, and I would love to do like the biggest stunt that's surpassing Evel Knievel in promotion with the next Ghost Rider.
Yeah.
Our people should talk. And Nicolas Cage is put in this position of like,
Whoa.
he's like, I don't make those kind of calls, but I would
Yeah.
love to see that, because at
Yeah.
this point no sequel had been
Yeah.
announced.
Right,
Because it was a
right.
while.
Right.
So he was just like trying to be nice to this guy.
Yeah.
And then years
Yeah.
later that sequel came out.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And even when the sequel came out, I'm like, who greenlit this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who, it's like Idris Elba was in it, but it was a bad
It was
movie.
bad. It was just bad.
Anyway, all to say, from the casting of him, Ghost Rider was going to be
It was bad.
Yeah.
And the fact that every time Ava Mendes was on screen, her cleavage was hanging out. So I'm like, mother effers.
And
Like,
Ava
don't
could-
get me wrong. I love me some cleavage. But,
Yeah.
like,
It's
when
just-
you're promoting it, like, every shot of the movie has her cleavage.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, oh,
Yeah.
my. This
And-
movie's
and
just creepy.
Too much cleavage.
Like, it's creepy in not a good way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It's just a lot of Hollywood cliches.
Exactly. It's just all
You know?
Hollywood cliches.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Speaking of Hollywood
major
cliches,
sidetrack. Major sidetrack.
I don't want to rewatch Ghost Rider, guys.
I don't either.
Don't
I'll make
do
you.
it.
I'll make you do it someday.
Don't
though.
do it.
Let's talk a little bit about superheroes score big at the Oscars this year. This was a very, very big year for superheroes in that regard. We've got 4 movies from superhero genres that made a big splash at the Oscars in terms of the nominations. Now, whether or not some of these movies will win, I think that is a whole separate conversation. But let's talk about these 4 movies, starting with Black Panther. 7 nominations for Black Panther, including costume design, sound mixing, sound editing, original score, production design, original song, all the stars, and Best Picture. This movie is a beast in every single regard. We talked about it last week, how impressive it is that movie grossed, the amount of money that it grossed, and that the domestic and international grosses were basically even. You had an even amount of people domestically and internationally kind of going out monetarily to support this movie, which I think is so huge.
That's amazing. Such a good movie.
I read a really great article with Kevin Feige talking about this movie being nominated and sort of what it means to Marvel, and the thing that he really, really couldn't stop talking about was Ryan Coogler.
Yeah.
And I think that's the big thing that a lot of people have been talking about, the fact that Ryan Coogler did not get a nomination for directing Black Panther. And I think, I feel like this is a conversation we have every year about the Oscars. They upped the movies to 10. They only gave Best Picture noms to 8. Should they make more slots available because we output so many more movies now a year?
I don't know.
Does it matter? Would it change anything?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because there was a good video put out by Philip DeFranco. I don't know if you guys saw it, but it explains how the Oscars actually work.
I love Muffility.
Yes,
I watch him every day.
It's great, but you should watch this video because he breaks down how a movie actually gets into whatever category.
Yes.
It's not like a unanimous vote from the Academy. They're just like, oh yeah, well we think this movie should be in here. You have to pour millions of dollars into a campaign in order to get even on the ballot to try to be selected.
Baby.
It's crazy. You have to pour so much money into this stuff. So it's just like I put almost zero credibility into the Oscars only because like if I had a movie I had endless money. I could just, get it out there, put all the billboards up, get it, guarantee it a spot in the Oscars somewhere. Like, that's not very genuine to me. To me, it should be something that's born of, like, the Academy. Everybody should have to decide. Shouldn't be a money thing, but it is, and that's why I put, like...
Business.
And I'm still bitter about Creed, guys. Coogler got gypped back then. He's getting gypped again. Like this to me is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like
it's not an objective scientific thing.
No, it's not.
There's politics involved,
right?
And sometimes politics are not necessarily a bad thing. It is also kind of amazing when a studio will put its support behind filmmakers and behind a film and go, we believe in this.
Yes.
But it is still, it's still disappointing that and other actors that were nominated this year too, that they were like the Melissa McCarthy film.
Yes. With Richard E.
Will
Grant.
you ever forgive me? Can you ever forgive me? With Richard E. Grant. Richard E. Grant.
Nominated.
It's a movie where
nominated,
Melissa McCarthy plays a woman who she starts faking some letters from a famous person to kind of get just to sell them and get money. It's this true story where she says she found a letter from a writer.
It looks amazing.
And she's like writing it. And Abby saw it. She said it was pretty good.
Yeah.
Like they said it was a good film. Yeah. But some great performances from Melissa McCarthy, and then her co-star is Richard E. Grant, who's this British actor who's in his
he's gonna be in episode
50s
9.
or 60s. He's going to be in the next Star Wars. He's taken off because on social media he's posting videos of himself so excited that he got cast in Star Wars, bro. He's like giddy like a little kid. So people see that and they go, "This guy's awesome." And he got nominated for an Oscar his first time, he's so happy. But he was interviewed and he's like, "I also think it's a shame that the director of our movie didn't get nominated because he goes these performances don't come out of thin air."
Yeah.
Right.
The director has
collaboration.
I like that. I like that Kevin Feige said that. I like that this actor's saying that. And and I also, again, talking about the Oscars in general, it does feel like there is a bias towards certain people in Hollywood and kind of excluding certain people. It's very interesting to look at some of that stuff. It's great when there's exceptions to the rule. I know that the past couple of years, Mexican filmmakers have won Best Director, which is awesome.
It's great.
But it's also,
I don't want to downplay that either.
It's also clearly been skewed with male directors, and that's something that it's just an ongoing conversation.
One of my favorite movies of the year was You Were Never Really Here, directed by oh my God, Zach, help.
With
Lynn
Joaquin,
Ramsey.
with Joaquin Phoenix.
Yeah,
for sure.
You. I thought that movie was absolutely incredible. I love that movie so much.
Every piece of this conversation, you know, you can look at the Oscar list and go, well, this was omitted, and this, because there's so much good stuff out there and so much great talent.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, and again, with this world, with the superhero movie world, people are like, well, I don't like Black Panther as much as this, as much as that. I personally think Spider-Verse is a better movie. It didn't get nominated for Best Picture. Got animated, and that's a whole nother, thing to look at.
That's a whole nother thing that I'm pissed off about.
I don't agree necessarily.
I don't agree with that either.
Best movie's best movie.
Damn it.
The point is, my takeaway is, despite all of that, and all of those conversations are important and cool to have, it's still fucking rad that Black Panther got all of, because you mentioned costume design. We've been talking about the costumes since the movie came out.
Carter,
we're like, if Ruthie Carter does not get nominated, the costumes are ridiculous. The score, Ludwig Göransson.
Ludwig Göransson.
You want to talk about Creed again?
Good.
Ludwig getting some
love.
I'm so happy about so much.
It was
of that
cool
stuff.
too. Kevin Feige mentioned that Hannah Beachler, who's the production designer on Black Panther. She was very nervous about doing the movie because she had never done a movie of that scale.
Wow.
But based on the pitch that she gave Coogler and Feige, they hired her in the room.
Wow.
They basically said, we love it, we want you,
production
let's
designer?
go. Yeah.
Now, now breakdown production designer, what kind of job is that?
So
she's showing up to pitch like, this is what it should look like.
That's designing the
sets.
world. Yeah. What the world could look like based on how you can adapt it from the comics into real life. And,
she must have had some influence from the Ta-Nehisi comics, though, right?
Oh, for sure.
With Brian Stelfreeze's art, because you saw a lot of that reflected in the movie.
I haven't bought the book yet, but the art of Black Panther is a gorgeous book.
I haven't bought that one
yet.
It's
like all of their art of stuff is great, but Black Panther especially has all of that shit in there. That I wonder if some of her pitch is
probably.
in.
That'd be cool.
Because Marvel Studios already has an insane group of talented pre-production concept artists that are like, I follow all of them on Instagram. Like, they're phenomenal, but to have that happen, getting hired in the room, that's dope.
That's
dude.
cool.
Yeah.
The other Marvel movie that got nominated was Avengers: Infinity War. One nomination for Best Visual Effects,
of course,
which I think that's very earned. I think that's, in terms of scale and how big that movie is, and just how much the volume of visual effects, it's probably one of the most incredible achievements in visual effects in recent years. And there's a lot of other movies that you can talk about and bring into the conversation, a lot of things that directors like Christopher Nolan have done. But I think it's also the type of visual effects that they are. You're basically creating something out of virtually nothing. Taking an actor like Josh Brolin, who's basically doing a lot of what Andy Serkis does, and crafting a performance around that. I think it was the most consistent in terms of quality out of all the other visual effects, especially Marvel. I'm a pretty big critic of Marvel's visual effects. I think some of their stuff is really good. I think a lot of their stuff doesn't look that good.
Listen, Ant-Man and the Wasp didn't get nominated for visual effects. You know what I mean? And I
they're
really
up
like
against
that movie.
they're up against things like not Winnie the Pooh, Christopher Robin, Solo, which I think Star Wars has done a really good job of producing very consistently good-looking visual effects. My hope is that Infinity War gets it.
Same.
Clearly just based on sort of what it achieved.
And I think that's the key word to hit, is the consistency. Because with Thanos in particular, I never felt like the consistency, the quality dropped ever.
And I think if that didn't work, the movie didn't work.
Exactly.
Yes.
You can get away with little other things not working, but
like
Thanos
I have
work.
complaints about Bruce Banner inside the Hulkbuster suit. Like, that looks terrible. But I let that slide because Thanos was the thing that they had to focus on no matter what. It's like,
and you could tell.
Once you get Thanos wrong for 1 second, it's over.
It breaks
you break the illusion.
Another film that's nominated for visual effects is First Man.
Yes.
And it's like, people are like saying that's going to be the one to win because the Academy doesn't watch movies like Infinity War. They also look down on them. My frustration is that First Man might have fantastic visual effects recreating the moon landing, but look at what their uphill was versus what Infinity War was. Infinity War is 10 years of movies, characters, and all of those separate challenges, visual effects, computer-generated imagery, motion capture characters.
This is what the Academy should be drooling over.
But again, they look at that and they go, "Oh, well, this is superhero
for fantasy."
And it's like, First Man is from the director of Whiplash and La La Land, and it's like, okay,
it's about
dude.
the moon.
But again, look what they had to do, and even if it's amazing and consistent all the way through, on a scale of 1 to 10 of stuff they had to pull off, they have a 5 in terms of the most insane things to visualize. They have a 5. They have stuff we've seen in real life and will do, and it's
just
difficult, and they did it.
Yeah.
Infinity War has a 10. It's like you got to do talking tree, raccoon, purple guy,
Dying Star.
like
Dying Star comes back to life.
yes, yeah, seriously.
Everything.
They're gonna make Peter Dinklage huge.
Yeah.
They're gonna have laser beams and spider webs and
fake eyes.
and lightning.
90% of your characters are CG.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a Hulk
it's just
fight.
crazy.
Hulkbuster?
Iron Man suit, CG, the entire Hulkbuster.
There's a Wakanda. There's a Black Panther.
Big donut in the sky. Oh, you
Lots
thought
of big
Black
donuts.
And
Panther
4
was
villains?
tough.
Damn.
All of the Black Panther movie is also in there. Like
all of the Black
what?
Panther, and also an exploding moon.
You got
That's right.
you got
That
pink,
shot itself is incredible.
You got a pink Paul Bettany. You got
Paul Bettany,
energy,
yeah.
energy,
Energy,
shooting around. This sequence, that's all CG. That whole thing's CG.
Yep,
The whole thing's CG.
Spider-Man's whole suit, CG.
Benedict Cumberbatch with a cape. You got boop, 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 boop.
Everything.
Portals.
Itty bitty bitty.
Like what the fuck? And dust.
If you
Everybody
really,
dusts.
if you break it up this
It's so
way,
much shit.
There's just so much shit.
It's
like,
incredible, the
Not
volume.
even just planet Earth, all of Wakanda, and then also
Titan.
Thanos'
Titan,
planet.
yeah.
Titan.
Like just everything.
Planets.
Everything.
Nidavellir, Souls,
Nowhere.
no Soul Realm, nowhere. We got fucking Benicio del Toro.
Benicio-
goes like this, magnificent,
Magnificent.
and then we got
Magnificent.
this one
Weird.
turns into red. We got bubbles out of a gun.
We got Mantis as blocks.
Everything.
As
Yeah,
ribbons?
Mantis turns into
Ribbons?
ribbons. Dave Bautista turns into blocks.
Yep.
What the fuck?
It's fucking crazy.
That movie has everything.
When you start talking about that movie like that, you're like,
Yeah.
that movie's an acid trip.
I
Dude,
know,
it's nuts.
right? It's
Doctor
fucking
Strange
crazy.
makes his arms and shoots him with
There's
lasers.
a million
Meanwhile,
Doctor
fucking
Strange.
Yeah.
Chazelle over here is like, well, remember that footage from the 60s of the space walk?
We made
did
more
that.
of it.
Yeah, it's like, oh, great job, man. Great fucking, you mean that thing we've seen and we have reference to?
There's literally a movie that just premiered at Sundance, a documentary called Apollo 11, and it's about that,
I can't wait.
Oh,
I'm
there
sure
you
which
go.
looks amazing.
I'm sure it's
but
one of my favorite documentaries
Yes.
ever is In the Shadow of the Moon.
Yeah.
It makes me cry. I love that era, and I still haven't seen First Man, and I really want to. But again, it's just, to me, it's apples and oranges.
Sure,
like Infinity War is doing visual effects.
But it's kid
To
stuff,
the
dude.
next level.
It's kid
yeah,
stuff.
it's
Kids,
baby,
know, right?
it's baby
kids,
stuff. It's baby
kids
stuff.
sit behind the computers
That's
and
right.
create all this stuff.
That's right.
And
we
they
got
just think of it and
shit.
it happens.
We got Hugo Weaving, but it's not him. He floats. It's like,
Sounds like him?
fuck,
Not really.
Sounds like him, but it's not him.
Magic glove.
What's that?
We forgot the magic
Oh,
glove.
the
That's
magic
right.
glove.
Magic
It's got
glove.
colors,
Yeah.
purples.
Yeah, colors. It's just colors.
All the Skittles in the
They just
glove.
put
All
crayons.
the Skittles.
They just put crayons in it.
Make time. We'll go back. Go forward. That movie is
Oh
nuts.
my god! We also got Incredibles 2, which has
Okay.
one nomination for Best Animated Feature,
Yep.
Yeah.
and then of course capping it off, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse Best Animated Feature as well, competing against Incredibles 2, Wreck-It Ralph, and a
Yeah,
few others.
yeah.
For me, Best Picture, realistically, I'm gonna be completely honest. I don't think Black Panther is gonna get it.
No.
If it gets it, incredible surprise.
No.
Yeah.
Best
not
visual
gonna get it.
effects, my hope is for Avengers Infinity War.
Yeah.
And I think
Same.
for Best Animated Feature, it's got to be Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
gotta
That
be.
movie is
It's
just
gotta be.
incredible.
My buddy this afternoon, John Piercello, who's the writer and producer of Animation Investigation, said today, he goes, if this were any other year, I'd be gunning for Incredibles 2.
No
Same,
It was
shit,
awesome.
yeah.
same,
One of
same.
Pixar's best. What a
Yes.
great sequel. It's stunning
Absolutely.
visually.
Fucking love Brad Bird.
Great.
Love Brad Bird.
But
Brad Bird.
against Spider-Verse, we're like,
Spider-Verse went.
we're like, you're going down.
You, Brad Bird!
Iron who?
We hope it burns to the ground.
Which sucks because
Yeah.
that movie's the
Yeah,
movie
Incredibles
was
2 was so
fantastic.
good.
Yeah.
Is there anything else in terms of nominations that kind of stood out to you guys?
No, I don't give a shit about the Oscars.
Okay.
Just kidding. No, I mean, no, like I paid very little attention to
Yeah.
these noms, but I do like the fact that all these noms are there. Like, it to me, I hope all this stuff does as well as it can do in its respective category.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because it needs that recognition in the mainstream. Like,
Yeah.
I want to get to the point where these whatever fuddy-duddies in the Academy are just like taking these movies seriously from
Yeah.
now on and not just like writing it off as like, remember that one really mean Twitter article that came out where this guy was just like shitting all over superhero
Yeah.
movies?
It
Yeah,
was
it's just like-
infantile.
You mean the one that
exactly.
happens like every day by someone?
Right, exactly. But like,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know what has to happen. Where's that paradigm shift going to happen? And I think the Oscars is a good place for that to happen because as much as I don't care about them, a lot of people really do.
Yeah.
You know, and it's those people who we have to convince that
For
like
sure.
this is something that not only just means a lot to us, but like it's doing things like Avengers Infinity War. It's tying 10 years of movies together. Like, nobody is recognizing that achievement in the Academy.
Yeah, and it's never really been done to this
It's
scale.
never been done.
Yeah.
It's never been
genre film has always been something that has not had a great presence at award shows like this, especially the Oscars.
That's why you have things like the Scream Awards and the MTV Movie Awards.
Exactly.
Exactly.
I used to love the MTV Movie Awards. It was so fun, so
that
great.
used
But
to be fun. Yeah,
it used to be so cool. But and I'm not ragging on whatever they're doing now. I'm sure it's fine. But like, yeah, it's like even though Star Wars was nominated for Best Picture in 1977, 78, or whatever, decades of great horror films and comic book movies and action movies and comedies and all these great different genres of film are overlooked. You know, for every year that we get something like The Dark Knight or you know, Iron Man or whatever, that kind of changes and shifts pop culture, or Black Panther or Avengers Infinity War. The Academy, it seems like for every kind of 10 of those, they'll sort of pick one and be like, okay, cool, James Cameron's Avatar. Okay, cool, District 9.
Yeah.
That's it. You know, that kind of
Cherry
feeling
picking,
of and it's a bummer because, again, when you look historically at the history of the Oscars, it's like that there should have been, in hindsight, decades past, and these movies are looked at as like, you know, what we love, even from like pristine filmmakers. That's part of the reason you get into movies, is because you see these other worlds, and
It inspires
these
you.
great stories and these great adventures, and yeah. So you're absolutely right, Augustine. It's about this sort of recognition that can help filmmakers. It can help, you know. I mean, not that Coogler needs it, but like if Black Panther were to win Best Picture, it absolutely is like it's going to help his next paycheck. It's going to help him have this kind of power in Hollywood that is rare for a young black guy to, you know,
that is our age. That is our age, by the way.
31. So all of that stuff's really exciting, and and it does provide visibility. My dad is a big movie fan, and he's going through on purpose all of the Best Picture nominees, and he's he's finding them even if it's something he wouldn't have been interested in. He's like, well, I want to go see this because it's nominated for Best Picture.
Yeah,
you know, and I think that's true for a lot of people that that love movies. So I'm excited, man. There's a lot of good stuff. It's obviously the Oscars are not like we were saying objective, but
as the most filmmaker among us, how do you like how do these nominations feel to you? Like,
it was really so. Like, I woke up. I didn't wake up early to watch it live, but when I woke up, I started going through them, and I don't know, for some reason I wasn't. And there's some of them I haven't seen yet. Like, I really want to go see Roma, but I want to go see it in the theater before I watch it on Netflix again. I wasn't really drawn to any of the movies. You know, movies like Sorry to Bother You, You Were Never Really Here, Eighth Grade, Bo Burnham's movie. Just there's so many other films that I feel like have sort of been in the conversation for the last year, and none of those have been present throughout the Oscars at all. If Beale Street Could Talk, I think Barry Jenkins was nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay. Other than that, I think one of the actors has a Best Supporting Actress nomination.
I think you're right.
Otherwise, I think it's Regina King. Otherwise, I feel like none of those movies have had any sort of recognition from these like bigger award ceremonies. Yeah. Which is kind of a bummer because I feel like those are the films that everyone has just been talking about all year.
Yeah. Or at least in our sort of Twitter circles.
In our circles,
right,
exactly.
Yeah.
So, and I think a lot of that also has to do with visibility. I think because those movies have such limited distribution. Like a movie like Roma, even though it's on Netflix, theatrically, if somebody wanted to seek it out, it was only playing at the theater where we saw The Iron Giant, the Vista Theater.
Yeah.
So a very limited release, and like AMC and Edwards are not putting it out because it's on Netflix. So I think a lot of that comes down to visibility. And my hope is that, and I sort of hope this becomes a trend every year. My hope is that these people, these critics, and all these big movie fans and moviegoers who go see more movies throughout the year other than just what's nominated, I want to see more people going out there and giving a voice to these underappreciated or undervalued movies, whether it's Sorry to Bother You, You're Never Really Here, or other things that, you know, that people have not seen.
Right.
Because I'm more interested in watching those movies before I see the other ones, aside from maybe like Roma. So it's a little disappointing, but I'm happy for the movies that I'm a fan of that got nominated.
Right.
I think it's cool that Black Panther got the
Best
recognition that it's getting.
Yeah.
You know, and to all the people who say that it's an overrated movie, I really have no other argument for you than to say, look at what came before and look what this does so differently. And even the things that it does, that it's like that stereotypical superhero stuff, every superhero movie does that. And
Yeah,
I think it's fine that Black Panther embraces that, but also tries to do something completely different and new and fresh.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, I'm excited though, and I think Spider-Verse is gonna crush the best animation category.
I hope so, man.
And it deserves it because it's a damn good.
so.
Movie.
It absolutely deserves it.
Let's talk about another movie that I'm actually very excited about this year.
Shazam.
Coming out in April. SHAZAM!
Oh, cool.
SHAZAM! There was a bunch of set visit notes that came out in the last week or so, so I want to touch on a couple things that I thought were fun and sort of gave us a little more insight into the movie. I love the enthusiasm that's coming out of these set visits, whether it's Zachary Levi, Jack Dylan Grazer, Asher Angel, even Mark Strong, David Sandberg, the director. There's a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of excitement. Before we talk about it, though, let's watch this TV spot. We didn't get a chance to do a reaction to it. So we're gonna watch
I
this TV.
still haven't seen that.
I haven't seen it either.
Cool,
Yeah.
cool.
So
I haven't seen it either.
I did see that one shot with Billy Batson jumping off the
Okay,
same,
cool.
same.
Same.
And I only saw it because Ryan Unicomb posted it on his
Again,
bad boy.
Ryan.
Bad boy.
But this is like a couple of days after.
Yeah,
it.
it's all
so,
good.
Yeah, it's
That's on
okay.
us.
All right, so
We
let's check
still
out
love
this
you,
TV
Ryan.
spot.
Billy Batson, I choose you. Say my name so my powers will become yours.
That's such a dope
So
shot.
cool.
Pretty sick. I like it.
Yeah.
He's not so serious.
I'd like to purchase some of your finest beer, please.
Nice.
Shazam.
A lair. Yes. If you have a location like on a cliff, like a castle-esque type thing,
Overlooking some water.
overlooking some water, splashing on rocks and stuff, then we will take that.
It's big, man.
I love
it's
it.
Big.
I love
good.
it.
I do
Yeah.
love
So
that.
again, I think that's the big thing, and it comes across from them, the actors, and I think it's obviously coming across here in this TV spot.
Yeah.
I love the fact that it embraces sort of that big quality, that wish fulfillment, the thing that we've been talking about for months and months that we hope that this movie would embrace, and talking about sort of like the lighthearted tone compared to some of the other movies. But I think you need that contrast of like stuff that's darker, stuff that's lighter, and everything in the middle to sort of fill out the universe.
I'm getting a familiar feeling from these trailers that I got when the first Deadpool trailers came out. It was like, it feels fresh, like it feels alive. It feels like it's not caught up in all of this other garbage going around with all these movies and these crazy fandoms that are just like kind of toxic to be around. This movie feels like it's going to be very earnest.
Yeah.
Like it knows what it is, and it's going to embrace it 100% and just knock it out of the park, dude. This movie looks great.
It's gonna live or die on the chemistry between those two.
They have it,
Shazam
though. They have
and,
it.
And,
You can see it right
and
there.
It's not Billy. What's his name? Freddie
Freeman.
Freeman.
Yeah.
And you can see it. That kid from It is great.
He's
Yes.
great.
He really
Jack Dylan
is.
Grazer.
He's a really great actor.
So jumping into
yeah.
that part, I'm going to go back to the other parts, but that's one of the things that they talked about. They interviewed Zachary Levi and Jack Dylan Grazer and Asher Angel as well. But that's the thing that Jack Dylan Grazer was talking about. He was saying the first day on set with Zachary Levi was shooting the robbery in the liquor store. And he said that the energy and the enthusiasm that Zachary Levi brings to the set, it lifted everyone's spirits and it made it that much more exciting. And he says that Freddie Freeman is sort of like the Alfred to Billy's Bruce. Because he understands the world and he's all into superheroes. So this movie obviously does take place in the greater DC cinematic universe. There are references to things in Man of Steel. You obviously see that the superheroes in that world are very much embraced by like consumer products. They have toys for all the characters and all that sort of stuff. Freddie Freeman is a huge Superman fan. He's a huge Aquaman fan. So he understands that world, which is why he sort of is Billy's right-hand man, and he teaches him or helps him understand, what are my abilities? Can I fly?
Helps him
you have bullet
understand
immunity.
that he needs a lair.
Exactly. He needs his own bat cave.
He's like, dude, you need a lair.
That's
like,
right.
Where are you going to hang out?
It's what's going to be interesting is, are we going to see Superman? Either Henry Cavill, the actor, is going to have a cameo, or at the very least, are we going to see footage of him? And if they're not, like, are they gonna how are they gonna sort of sidestep that?
Yeah, well, so you can
you can side. It's not impossible.
Sure. And in the first trailer, in the background, you see a lot of references to the other movies.
Right.
They've got newspaper clippings from the Battle of Metropolis, Superman's return in Justice League. So I think there's going to be there are definitely, David Sandberg said there's definitely going to be references to things, But whether or not those characters will actually show up in person, I don't think so.
And I hope not.
And I kind of don't need it.
No. That's not what's important. What I'm curious about is like, again, I think it's very smart to go, this kid and these kids in particular look up to Superman.
Yes.
And they might even be familiar with Batman and Wonder Woman and Aquaman, and that's how it should be because the Justice League are the big show. They're running the game.
Yeah.
So like, what kind of presence is that? How how much? Are
how
we
does the
sort of
world embrace those
visually
characters now?
Is it just gonna be sort of logos and different things? Like, if there's no good pictures of Batman in the news, that makes sense. But Superman, I mean, he's in the beginning of Justice League. He's posing for a kid on their phone.
Yeah.
When he's talking to him. So like, and I think that's important because again, those characters I mentioned, those Justice League characters, they are like the patriarchal and matriarchal, figures of the universe. They are the ones that are, to compare, obviously, and in the comic books and now in the movies, thankfully, the Avengers. They're the Iron Man, Captain America, and Thor of that universe. And so many of those characters look up in the MCU, look up to those characters. So this is really, really, really cool. But like, how much of that are we going to see? I'm specifically talking about Batman and Superman. Is this studio's plan to be like, we're going to get other actors in there at some point. So we're not going to show you Henry Cavill. We're not going to show you Ben Affleck's face. We might show you Gal Gadot's face. We might show you Momoa's face.
Yeah.
Right.
But Superman and Batman are the same characters, and we're trying to get some other actors in there.
Yeah. My hope is, honestly, I hope they don't even worry about it.
I hope
there's just like iconography that references those characters.
Yeah.
Other than that,
the good
it's
news
a Shazam
is
maybe
movie.
a statue of Superman.
The good news is look, think about this. Spider-Man's in gym class, and you got Chris Evans' Captain America videos. Perfect. Right? Spider-Man's in science class, and there's a picture of Mark Ruffalo banner. That makes sense. To have that kind of face on there makes sense. And then Iron Man straight up in Homecoming, Tony Stark, all that makes sense. Superman and Batman in our real world are so recognizable, obviously. Right. Those logos, obviously. You could do it without having to show them on the news. Without having, like, Superman addressed the UN today. Like, you don't have to cut to that. Like, you could just talk about those characters, and it'll still sort of make sense.
And just have, like, the S. You don't even have to have his picture.
Like, he has a batarang as a prop.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They also revealed that Shazam will face Doctor Sivana, which we know is being played by Mark Strong, and the 7 Deadly Sins.
Cool.
So that begs the question, will we see the Marvel family, the Captain Marvel Shazam family?
I think so. I think I've already seen some merch.
Oh, did they release the toys on accident again?
Yes or no? Are you really surprised by that?
Yeah.
Come on,
Yeah.
y'all.
I'm not. They already did it with Infinity War.
Captain Marvel.
I have a little something else that I might share with you guys after the show.
Okay.
So I think that's sort of I think that's sort of a foregone thought. I think that's going to be. I think that's an inevitability, and I love it because I think it expands Shazam's universe. And I think it just adds more characters into the greater DC universe.
Well, it also kind of lets you know if they are deciding to go with the family, that they have faith in this property. They're like, we're gonna put some money into this, and we like it so much that we think you guys might like the entire family of Shazam characters.
And I'm so happy too that unlike Aquaman, where they were like Orm and Black Manta, which are like the two big Aquaman villains. Which I loved. I really do love that. If Manta wasn't the main villain, they're like, at least his origin, and we're setting him up. With this one, it's like, let's focus on Sivana. Obviously, Black Adam could be the focus for a sequel.
Right.
Which I feel like is perfect. I really do think that that's really great. Especially because Black Adam is such a villain to the greater DC universe that like
that's a whole build up of
itself.
Yes. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah. Okay. The other thing that David Sandberg talked about, the influences, obviously we know big. Goonies, Ghostbusters, and Back to the Future. Very much embracing sort of those really fun, high-spirited, lighthearted, great movies of the 80s, which I'm all into. Absolutely. He also talks about honoring Shazam from the Golden Age and the New 52, things like the short cape, but it has a hood. Even though Doctor Sivana, is a character that's been around since, I think, Wiz Comics #2. For a long, long time.
Good pull.
But they're very much doing the New 52 take. So he's saying there's a lot.
Mark Strong.
Yeah, exactly.
He's not this gross little.
That's right.
Oh, Captain Marvel, I'll defeat him.
So I think there's a lot of this like influence from the whole 70 years of history. One of the more intriguing things was Mark Strong, and not just talking about Dr. Sivana, but talking about superhero movies.
And omitting the other one he was in.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. But he talks about that Dr. Sivana wants the power of the wizard that's been obviously bestowed upon Billy.
Yeah.
And he's aware of the fact that this power has been bestowed upon a 14-year-old child. So I think that's going to be an interesting dynamic to see how this scientific villain and this 14-year-old child, what that dynamic is going to be like.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We're going to witness the origin story of that character and why he has such a passion and such a hunger for this power, which I'm all into, and I part of me kind of hopes it maybe leads into Black Adam's story.
Absolutely.
Which
I think it will.
I think would be awesome.
Yeah.
I think they'll even hint towards Mr. Mind, who's the other major Shazam villain, who's this little worm that's like a brilliant.
I don't think I've ever heard of Mr. Mind.
He sometimes looks cartoony, and in recent DC comics of the past 10, 15 years, I think people like Jeff Johns have brought him back. He actually looks like a little parasitic worm that's like this big or whatever. But at one point, Booster Gold's robot buddy Skeets was acting on the fritz, and then it turns out that Mr. Mind was in there,
was inside,
fucking everything up. So I bet you they will even Mr. Mind and Sivana have teamed up.
Yeah.
Black Adam is another entity that he'll work for a greater good. He'll work for his own ends. He'll team up with Sivana sometimes, but it's also you can't control that dude.
Yeah.
You know,
he's his own beast.
It's like Loki or Thor. You can't, you know, and but yeah, I bet you will even see a setup for that.
Okay.
So Mark Strong talks a little bit about superhero movies. It's a good thing because I think everything is informing everything else. Guardians of the Galaxy comes out that has a sense of humor. Now that now infuses Thor Ragnarok, which gives that a bit more of a sense of humor as well. Now we've moved into the world of Black Panther, and now we've got a female superhero in Wonder Woman. It's as if everything is pushing the genre onwards, and I think that can only be a good thing.
Really good.
So
really good observation.
Yeah, and one of the things that they talked about in the article was how much he is a fan of the genre. Obviously, he was in Green Lantern, he was in Kingsman, he was in Kick-Ass.
Yeah.
And he very much loves reading the source material.
Really?
And he really dove into Doctor Sivana.
Dude,
he knows a little bit of
Sinestro.
he knows a little bit about the histories of the characters. So I love that. I love that I love when an actor takes on a role, because I think with villains, especially with villains of characters that are not as well known, I feel like actors feel like, well, nobody knows who this is. I have a lot of flexibility to mold it the way I want. I like when an actor says, because this villain has never been on screen before, and we've never seen the Shazam universe on film, we have a lot of flexibility to mold it the way we want. But
there's a history.
There's a history that we have to honor and respect.
It's walking the fine line.
Exactly.
Walking on the
exactly.
razor's edge.
I love that.
Yeah. He's great in John Carter. Y'all remember that movie?
Yeah.
I need to rewatch that. He's the bad guy in that.
That's right.
He's the other bald, super powerful, he just
the being.
He just messes up with messes with John Carter.
And even Sinestro, the movie is what it is, but if there was an opportunity for a continuation of that, I would love to see him back as Sinestro, which obviously won't happen now.
He should have been Sinestro. I don't think that the first movie should have been he was just like a good guy Green Lantern. Or if it was, we can't get into that.
Hector,
you
know where that movie came from.
There's so many things.
We need to make a podcast about
You read
what
the
ifs.
script from where that movie came from.
the Jack Black one?
Yeah, exactly.
That's different. That's not that. But yeah, I think that full-blown evil Sinestro, obviously
Mark Strong would have been great.
He would have crushed it. He would have crushed it. So,
but so I think overall, I'm very excited about this movie. I think it's going to be a great step for DC. I think it's going to be really cool to establish sort of what we've been used to, the darker tone of that universe, the lighthearted tone. And then now with all these other movies being made, Wonder Woman 1984, Birds of Prey, there's a lot of tonal room that you can fill.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to see what all of those movies do.
Right.
And I think just an interesting time for DC right now. With the next article that we're going to talk about sort of emphasizes that. But I think overall, Shazam as a movie on its own, I'm excited that they are just focusing on Shazam.
Exactly.
So
how does that lead into the next thing that we're talking about?
So the next thing that we're talking about is Toby Emmerich is talking about, he was asked about the future of Warner Brothers and sort of the year that Warner Brothers has had, because he, from 2016 to 2018, he has switched roles, and since he sort of has taken on a new role, overseeing a lot more movies, the studio has seen a lot more success. Aquaman is the first movie to break $1 billion for the studio in
that
like
franchise?
6 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So he were also talking about Crazy Rich Asians and how a lot of studios passed on that because the math just did not compute, and they were like, "This is going to be a loss."
Yeah.
And for him to say like, "You know what? We're gonna roll the dice on it," and to be a big huge success.
And Asian people showed up for
Right?
that movie. They were like, "Thank you."
Who would have thought?
They're
Who would have
like-
thought? Same thing with A Star Is Born. Like that has been a
Yeah.
monumental success. That was only made for a $40 million budget, and it's grossed over $200 million. And obviously, Aquaman this year has crushed it completely and been a huge success.
Yeah.
But speaking specifically about DC, well, so he talked about, which I liked. He talked about the goals for Warner Brothers going into 2019. And he says they remain the same: to produce, market, and distribute the most diverse slate we can, and not play the Disney Fox game. Disney Fox will clearly remain the number one studio. We're highly focused on DC, on ramping up animation, and on movies that contribute to the social conversation. We have a footprint in horror, and we don't believe comedies are dead. We want to continue hitting all those genre buckets as well as nurture and birth new franchises. So the thing that I like, and this is something that is completely the opposite of what I've always heard from people at DC, which is like catching up with Marvel, doing things differently,
That's
yada
the goal.
yada.
That's the goal. Right.
I like that it's like Disney is a giant corporation. They will always be number one. They have all the money in the world. We're going to focus on doing our thing. And I like that. I just focus on the thing that like makes you a great studio. Really put the time into your properties and establishing new things so you can have more Crazy Rich Asians because they're doing a sequel. So like I like that narrative. I like the narrative of like we're going to focus on, you do you. The narrative of you do you. That's my favorite thing. So I hope they follow through with it. I hope he really pushes that.
Yeah.
And I hope that the studio remains successful because of that and not because we need to compete with another studio.
I mean, that we've been kind of hitting that over the head for a while now because we knew that taking that approach from the beginning was really a bad reason to start your superhero universe because they just wanted to be the anti-Disney. And if that's your only purpose, you're almost guaranteed to fail. Like coming out of spite, that's not any way to base this thing off of. So now that they tried it. They knocked their heads against that wall. They were not going to win very clearly. And so now they rolled back. I'm just glad that this didn't completely knock them out of the superhero game.
Yes.
And we have to attribute that to Wonder Woman. Like if Wonder Woman would
did
not
a
have
lot.
come out, dude,
this would be a very different.
They'd be out of the movie game.
Yeah,
as
I
far
think
as the
Wonder.
superheroes
Yeah,
go.
and I think
this
Wonder
franchise.
Yeah, I think Wonder Woman was the movie that they said, "Oh, we can do a movie that focuses on one character.
Yep.
It can be in the greater universe, but we don't have to like tie all these things together."
I feel like they were caught up in the fact that like the Marvel universe at that point was already had so many characters and everything built up, but I feel like whoever was pulling the strings failed to realize that Marvel had put in that work to be there where they could put out an Avengers movie and everybody's excited, and they were just like, yeah, we can do that. Let's just jump the gun and we'll just jump right into it. But it didn't happen.
Right.
Like it just that requires a lot of buildup, a lot of work. So I'm really glad that this is the
new
sort
narrative.
of motto that they're coming out with, which to me sounds like it's just like Shazam. It feels honest. It feels genuine. Like I feel like their head's kind of in the right place now. So I don't know. We'll see.
I think my biggest takeaway from this is that Marvel Studios is really interesting in that the first couple movies, I'm talking Incredible Hulk, even Iron Man 1, the end of Iron Man 1, especially with Nick Fury, but Incredible Hulk, Iron Man 2, everybody points to Iron Man 2 and they're like, this feels like too much of a shared universe setting up for other stuff.
So just a movie to set up.
It sets up Thor. Coulson goes off to Thor.
Yeah, it's the prologue for everything else.
It's prologue. The Avengers Initiative setting up. Black Widow's into it. She's crammed into it. Thor had that little Hawkeye cram into it. And then when we get to the Avengers, I feel like a lot of people looked at that, and maybe Warner Brothers saw that and went, okay, this is just everything put together. Yeah. I still say that I would still argue that Phase 1 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe from 2008 to 2012, even though Iron Man 2 is that, it's still an Iron Man movie. Right. You can still look at that and pay attention to what's happening to Tony Stark, Robert Downey Jr., and whether you love it or not, like there's a story there. There's an arc there. So it's an Iron Man film. Thor is Thor. We're spending time with these characters. Avengers, you could look at it and go, it's just everything crammed together. I think Avengers is its own separate franchise. Avengers Part 1 feels like an Avengers movie. It's got S.H.I.E.L.D., it's got Coulson, it's got Maria Hill, it's got Nick Fury.
It's not a singular character.
It's not. And that carries through into Age of Ultron. It does have a different vibe than just all of the characters kind of crammed together. And my observation from that is maybe other studios saw that and went, oh, okay, the big ticket is cram everything together.
Yeah.
And then with Man of Steel, let's find some little Easter eggy things, but it's a Superman movie because I don't think that they were planning to do with everything that was happening.
Yeah.
With Part 2, I think they decided to jump to DC Part 2 instead of Superman movie, Superman or Batman movie, or again, had the way that Avengers is its own franchise and has this vibe. This Batman versus Superman was not Justice League, it was this hodgepodge of of these two without focusing on one sort of character,
right?
And then Suicide Squad, along with a bunch of other sort of problems, same sort of thing. I feel like it's
focus.
It's one thing to look at Guardians of the Galaxy and go, oh, they did a team movie in one.
Yeah.
Let's do the team movie in one. Let's do the fun team movie in one. But the way that movie, it's still Star-Lord's movie.
Right.
You watch that and it's like other characters have their moments. It's still Star-Lord's movie.
Yeah.
And that, I think, affords that franchise to later look at Infinity War and go, it's Thanos' movie, but look at Gamora.
Right.
But look at what Strange goes through. Right. Look at Tony Stark. Look
Peter.
At Spider-Man. But it's still like Thanos' movie.
Yeah.
And,
Suicide Squad doesn't really have that.
No.
At times it feels like it does. At times I'm like, this is Deadshot's movie. At other times I'm like, I think it's Harley's.
Yeah.
And at other times I'm like,
unclear.
is this El Diablo's movie?
Yeah.
Is this
Rick Flag's movie?
I mean, the way they
Flag's movie?
finished it kind of felt like El Diablo's movie.
Right.
Yeah, where he sacrifices himself or whatever. So however you feel about the Marvel movies, I think that you do have to acknowledge that they're very good at the world building, and I think it is second to what's the character doing here. The first Ant-Man movie is Ant-Man. You look at the movie and go, Wasp should have been the superhero. You're not wrong. But at least they're able to focus on Scott Lang. They're like, let's make Scott work.
Let's build the legacy of that
Let's build
character.
Scott. And then in moving forward, we've got an amazing Evangeline Lilly, and obviously she'll be the Wasp, and blah, 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 blah. Yeah. So my takeaway from this is that I think that their initial approach was, we can just do DC Universe, the movie.
Yep.
And
One, 2, 3,
my
4,
feeling right now is like, I don't think you can do that unless it's television. My takeaway in the past couple months has been like Young Justice has been blowing my mind. And back to Justice League Unlimited. Mm-hmm. They did it, but how did they do it? Batman the Animated Series, focus. Superman the Animated Series, focus. Batman Beyond, little focus. Justice League, team, but they did focus on specific episodes. John Stewart,
everybody had a nice little arc.
Yeah. And then when you get to Unlimited, that's when they were like, bam,
big show.
So I'm like, I think TV and animation, honestly, is the only show where you can do like Marvel Universe, the show.
Yeah.
And each episode be its own thing. For movies, you got 2 hours. You got 2 hours to get people to love Shazam, to love Billy Batson. You got 2 hours to get people to love Diana of Themyscira. And I think with those first couple movies, they were like, this is DC Universe, the movie. And it should have been, get us to love Superman. Get us to love Batman. And also with their approach with those specific characters, I don't think they nailed it. You get to Wonder Woman, and like you guys are saying, that was the game changer.
Yeah. Yep.
Because their approach of like, we got to do the universe shifted to, Patty's got this.
Yeah.
Let Patty do her thing. Patty Jenkins nails it. And Patty is going, it's just Wonder Woman,
That's
the
all that
movie,
matters.
For 2 hours. Now, there's some connective. Bruce Wayne writes a letter.
Yeah,
Great.
Minimal.
And the prequel helps with that. Great.
Yeah.
Separated and minimal.
James Wan, Aquaman, the same thing.
Let's
minimal.
focus on
even
Arthur.
more minimal.
Yes.
Yep.
Very
There's
minimal.
even
One
less.
line.
Yeah.
One line.
Yeah.
Something Steppenwolf. And he's like, that's got nothing to do with this. He's like, shut the fuck up. We don't talk about Steppenwolf. We don't talk about Steppenwolf.
Coming to my house, how dare you?
But I love Warner Brothers. I've grown up with Warner Brothers, the studio. I know this is going to sound like I'm a capitalist idiot, but I like Bugs Bunny, dude. Do you know what I mean? Superman the movie, the Batman films.
That's what that was my jam. I watch Kids WB
every time I get to drive by the studio, I still am like, Animaniacs live in that water tower.
I'm trying to collect the entire Looney Tunes collection.
Yes,
that's my jam right now.
So I'm not rooting against. I want Warner, and I just finished.
Well, I think that's why we tend to be a little bit more critical because, like, for me personally, I care. Look, I was always aware of Marvel and all those characters. I watched those animated shows.
DC guy.
DC was the thing that I loved as a kid.
Those characters work. We know these characters work.
Whenever I hear someone say Superman is a boring character, I'm like,
yes,
let me crack my nuts.
we
Hold
know
on.
I'm about to
it
super
works.
punch you in the face.
And to see
that's
Warner
right.
Brothers give all of this love to 8 Harry Potter movies out of 7 Harry Potter books,
Yeah.
that love,
Now
I'm like,
15 with the fucking Fantastic Beasts.
I'm like, that love, just transfer it. I everything that Toby
Emmerich,
was saying,
yeah.
I'm in agreement with. I still am selfish, and I'm going, there should be one person, man
I
or
agree.
woman,
I
that is
agree.
just focusing on DC. Even if it's just a subsection of your, and if you guys are like, well, we don't have the resources
Right,
because
right.
our executives do everything, Warner Brothers, I go, no, hire one person.
Just hire one guy.
Even if they're just
Hire
even
one
if-
Hector Navarro.
Even if they're just doing, even if their only job is like, I got Shazam, I got Joker this year. That's it.
Yep.
Next year I got Wonder Woman 84 and whatever else.
Yeah.
And that, like
Birds of Prey or whatever. Yeah.
birds, whatever. Like just one, because even though we're talking about the individual power of each of these characters, I still believe there is a way to tell a larger story within that universe.
I agree. No, there is. Like, if
It's-
you really,
yes.
if you really think about it, you don't need to drop any Easter eggs,
No.
any huge connectivity threads
No.
in every movie you make, so that you still can connect Shazam to Wonder Woman and have them meet in one movie and
Yes.
team up. Like, you don't need to drop. I think part of the reason why they do that is because Nick Fury changed the game coming in at the end of Iron Man.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, cool. They knew what they were doing. It's
Yeah.
like, focus on these movies, and then once they have that critical reception, once they have that loyal fandom, once they change people's minds about what that they're away from that paradigm that they were in before, then they can just jump in and say, oh shit, we're about to see Shazam and Wonder Woman meet up. This is going to be dope. Like, let's
Yes.
watch this.
I think
So-
that it's unfortunate, again, back to Avengers. It's unfortunate that was as big of a hit as it was because I worry that the wrong lesson was, it's
Learned,
just
yeah.
to get the characters together.
Yep,
Avengers
exactly.
has its own vibe.
Exactly.
And Avengers really is Marvel Universe Part 1, right? And I think that the other equivalent, and unfortunately Justice League didn't hit the way it is Justice League. Or if they greenlight Teen Titans, the movie.
Right.
We've already got the Titans show. We've got Young Justice happening. But the other perspective of the DC Universe that a lot of Marvel Comics universe doesn't quite lean into as much as the younger generation.
Yeah.
Right,
the
exactly.
legacy.
But there's not
Yeah.
as many characters in play yet.
Yep.
But there's still to me the team movie is that sort of like what's the in the same way each of the characters have their own story to tell. The ongoing saga of this world can be told through the team movies.
Right.
Where it
Exactly.
has its own vibe, and the Teen Titans, going back to Young Justice, you can see it in that show. Going back to the Teen Titans comics of Marv Wolfman and George Perez, it's a totally different vibe
Right.
than everything else because Justice League was like characters getting together to fight space aliens.
Yeah.
Teen Titans is all of a sudden
Like-
we've got Cyborg, Raven, Starfire, and because they don't have their own books, we're getting some teenager drama
Yeah.
here,
Right,
and
right,
that's
right.
its own vibe.
Right.
But then Robin, Dick Grayson in that book would go back to Batman, and it's
Yes.
Batman. It's a different vibe. So, like, there is a meta narrative to tell, a larger narrative to tell with this ongoing world, especially if DC Warner Brothers decides to do the thing that Marvel has been kind of doing, which is allowing their characters to age. Marvel has been bringing in younger generation, new generation, different teams. We got a Black Panther movie. Shuri's in there on
Yeah.
purpose. So I don't think Marvel.
Spider-Man is young.
Too early to tell. I don't think Marvel is going to recast Tony Stark. But
Oh, no,
and because he's
no.
so beloved, I don't think they're going to even recast
Another
General
Iron
Ross.
person.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't
They're
think
gonna
they're
let
going
those characters age out.
and what does that mean? That's an ongoing thing.
Yeah.
And DC has so much of that.
It's
That
legacy.
it's like I
That's
think
all
there's
it
a
is.
story there to tell.
Yeah.
So
From Barry to Wally to
I
all
I mean,
these.
it reinvents itself all the time, and it just keeps going.
Yeah.
yes.
And like I think it even adds to the original characters and gives them even more weight and more
Yeah.
magnitude because
Yeah.
they become these characters that are just exalted, and it's just all these people coming in after him trying to live up to that
Yeah.
to that image that they gave out. You know.
And that's what I love, and that's what I.
Give
That's,
me chills, bro. Like
that's-
I feel that.
there.
Like,
that's something that I really have enjoyed about like something like Elseworlds, where we get to see the characters from different universes. You know, you have Barry Allen from Earth 90 versus Barry Allen from Earth 1.
Right,
And even seeing characters from other universes, Jay Garrick, and I love the idea. And Watchmen like did a really good job of
Yeah.
this, and even in just the one movie of
Yes.
planting the seeds of like, these are legacy
70s,
characters.
80s. Yeah.
Exactly, and that's something I think DC really. That's the one thing that I think DC could really embrace, having Robin become Nightwing, that character eventually could become either Red Robin or Batman, or like what that like all those things.
You know what would be wild? I'm going to throw this out there. This would be wild. This would be wild.
Hit me.
In addition to recasting some key characters that I don't think we're done yet, having their sort of impact on this world, namely Batman and Superman, I think that it would be wild if they came out with a movie, Wonder Woman 2, Aquaman 2, Shazam 2, whatever, and in that movie we learn about the greater world through the Easter eggs and the references, but like there's time jumps where they straight up say, you know, Superboy is right flying around, and all of a sudden you're like, wait, did they just say like Superboy? It's like, oh yeah, he's a thing. He's a guy that showed up and he had a T-shirt, and and Clark Kent's, Superman's been helped. No big deal, because Young Justice, again, going back to that, which has really been blowing my mind.
Yeah.
In between seasons, 5-year time jump. Robin to Nightwing.
Yeah.
And with that, there's so many storytelling opportunities, and they're able to push not just individual character stories forward, but the universe forward.
It matures a little bit. Yeah.
So instead of thinking about, okay, now that we have all these individual characters in play, the next Justice League movie has to be the same characters. Let's pick up where we left off, except now Shazam. It's like, no.
Right.
What if the next Justice League movie is like totally a different roster?
Right. Exactly.
No Batman. Superman's there. No Wonder Woman. Aquaman's there. We've got Martian Manhunter just shows up.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? It's like Hawk
John
Girl.
Stewart.
All of a sudden, John Stewart's there.
John Stewart Lantern.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's just there.
Hawk Girl, no Hawk Man.
Yeah.
And throughout we learn like, oh damn, there was like a Thanagarian invasion that showed up, and Hawkman was repelled, and blah, blah, blah.
Exactly.
All these things where you're just like, let's move forward.
Yeah. I agree.
And then
I agree.
and with that stuff, that's the opportunity to do this DC extended universe that has been this fake name for the franchise to actually with those opportunities mean something to go. We're going to hire DC Comics and some great writers and artists to put out what happened before this movie.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's canon.
There it is.
Some preludes.
That's a win-win-win.
Yeah.
Right.
That is a win-win-win.
And you just fit in the blank pieces of the puzzles, and those could be your
and
filler
you keep
movies.
going off of the ages of the actors.
Yeah.
Momoa keeps being Aquaman until at one point in a Justice League movie, Aqualad shows up, and he's this young black kid. And you're like, wait a minute. And if you've seen Young Justice, you're like, ramifications.
Yeah.
You know, where Shazam, Billy Batson just kind of keeps aging.
Yep.
And maybe we see other members of the Shazam family or what have you. But, like, that would, I think, be a really daring – Marvel Studios does it a little, but they have 2 to 3 movies each year. So we're kind of keeping up.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden in Thor, it's like Hulk's been Hulk for 2 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
We didn't get to see any of the World War Hulk
Yeah,
or the Planet Hulk
and that's
at all.
And that's okay. We got Thor Ragnarok.
Exactly.
But like, if Marvel wanted to, they could also put out a comic, whatever they wanted to do. But that's something I think Warner Brothers should really consider because of the fact that they have such a rich history in this thing. I still want one person to be like, I'm the DDC person. I'm in charge of this, just to be able to, because I still get frustrated and selfish that this great executive is like, not just superheroes. We've got crazy rich Asians. We've got a foothold in horror. We love comedies. I'm already like, stop. I don't care, bro. Tell me about this. Give me my soups. Tell me about this, right? And that's dumb because he's like, listen, Hector, this is my job. I have to cover everything.
Like,
and I'm like,
I run a movie studio, not a superhero factory.
But I don't give a shit, bro. Like.
Well, the other thing that he answers is, what does the success of Aquaman mean for the DC universe? He says, we all feel like we've turned a corner now. We're playing by the DC playbook, which is very different than the Marvel playbook. We are far less focused on a shared universe. We take it one movie at a time. Each movie is its own equation and own creative entity. If you had to say one thing about us, it's that it always has to be about the directors.
Hector's about to explode.
Aquaman 2. Him and Mara straight up have a baby.
Yeah.
Time jump. Do you know what I mean? I'm like,
arms off.
Dude,
you don't even get to see it.
He just shows up with a hook
How
hand.
dare.
No,
How dare.
that I need to see.
I know, we need to see that.
That I need to see. But like, no, seriously, it's like it's been 5 years, Orm. You ready to talk?
Right.
You know, you can pick up certain threads,
we
but
don't
other
need to
things
see the
like,
pregnancy. Like, we don't need to go through all that. Just jump straight to the fact he's got like a 5-year-old kid.
Yeah.
You know?
And not only that, Aquaman 2, like he gets back from a Justice League meeting, and Mara's like, "How did it go?"
He's got a briefcase.
Honey, I'm home.
Suit.
Yeah, he takes his
Puts
hat
his
off.
aqua hat back on the. What a day! What a day at the office. His tie made of coral or whatever. But like, he could say something about like the Justice League and being like, "John's giving me a hard time." You're like, "Wait,
exactly.
John?" You know,
John
like,
Stewart, what?
Like,
Yeah.
like we don't need.
Plus, I think also what the time jump will allow you to do is to do things that maybe perhaps were not as successful or were not as sort of like made clear in the other movies. How does the world feel about Batman? How do they feel about Superman?
Exactly.
And if you do a 2 to 4 or 5 year time jump, you can just with one line of dialogue say, explain like, oh, the world is really like, you know, they find Superman to be this type of a character.
Right.
The world feels this way about Batman. You know, everyone is still inspired by Superman and what he does. We feel reinvigorated. You know, all that sort of stuff.
Even though each of these characters deserves and it necessitates these movies their own focus, the rest of the larger DC universe does affect their characters and their relationships.
Right, exactly.
Again, I'll say it for the umpteenth time. Young Justice is this way. Young Justice is so unique in that it starts to ask, what if instead of individual superhero origins and identities and different stories, like they're all tied into one another. Certain characters exist because other certain characters exist. Then that's part of it. There's this larger narrative of metahumans is a thing. And it's not this kind of isolated stuff. And that's really difficult to tell if you don't have that sort of bigger picture thing. And I think that it's doable. I think that with movies, it's a different language, and it's not step 1, step 2, step 3. If Warner Brothers with DC wanted to go, Aquaman 2 is step 5. Like, that's juicy to me. It seems like we've kind of really started to hone in on this idea, and I think that would be a really great solution to some issues.
Or another avenue to go down.
Storytelling.
Yeah, it's just a different way to tell a story. Like, you're still telling the story, but it's not the traditional, like, it's more a comic book way of telling the story rather than like a traditional movie way of going about it.
DC did it themselves. DC did 1 year later.
Yeah.
When they had an event where, like, Superman was depowered, Batman was like, I need a break. Wonder Woman was like, me too. And they all took a year off. They had comics that explained, here's the superheroes that stepped up during this year absence. But let's just go to 1 year later, and then they come back. And it was just like storytelling opportunity of like, wait, even when they did the New 52 reboot, they were like, meanwhile, these characters have been active for 5 years. Everyone was like, what happened in those 5 years? It's like, we'll tell you if we want.
We'll tell you.
And that's
check this out first. And if you're interested, we'll make another one.
Exactly. So keeping on the trend of Aquaman, right now Warner Brothers is figuring out whether or not they're going to be able to get James Wan to do the sequel. I think everybody wants James Wan to come back, but sources say the plan is in discussion for Wan to oversee the development of a second film, including the selection of writers, and then make a decision on whether to direct it after he sees the script. I think it's a no-brainer.
Okay.
James Wan has made he's made $1 billion franchise for Universal and for Warner Brothers for Fast 7 or Furious 7, and now with Aquaman. I think it's sort of a no-brainer to have him come back and do the story as long as he feels like it's adding something to Aquaman's universe, but maybe potentially, like we're talking about here, the greater DC universe. Because I agree. I think it would be really nice to see some sort of a time jump so we can now just say these characters have been in a relationship. Just get the world moving. The world moving. What's Black Manta like? Where's he at? You know, what's he been doing for the last couple of years? What sort of team has he been assembling?
I mean, it's going to take him a while to get that suit back and running. You know, they kind of hinted towards it.
I don't need to see that happening in a sequel. I just want the suit to work.
Exactly. I don't want to see another montage of him creating another one.
We don't need it. We want him to show up and be like, here's the plan I've been working on for 5
son of a
years.
bitch.
Boom, your baby's dead. Boom, your dad's dead.
We talked about that last week.
Ooh, and he's like, and this plan is executed perfectly. Bam.
Be careful I don't get your mama.
Surgical precision, and I only use that knife.
That's
all I use.
His dad's knife. I want it.
So James Wan, he's got to be back,
I think so.
Yeah.
I think he has to be back. He's not obviously the last word on Aquaman, clearly. So as long as he's okay with the people who are creating it, I feel like James Wan has created something, and basically everything he creates is like, I feel like he really, really owns it. So even though he is not the last word on Aquaman, I feel like now people who really love Aquaman are attracted to this. They're like, I saw what you did. I see you. I want to contribute. And I hope those are the kinds of people that he gets for this project, because from here on out, we could get some really dope stuff coming out of Aquaman.
And like, look, I'm not against the idea, and I think there was a set photo of David Sandberg and James Wan. What was happening in that photo, I have no idea. But I really like the idea that you have these directors who establish these characters, Patty Jenkins, James Wan, David Sandberg, and you have one overseeing entity from Warner Brothers DC who is like in charge of the greater universe of like, this is what we're doing. But then movies that take place in this shared universe, directors are communicating and talking.
Exactly.
I love it.
These are the story things that we're doing. Is there something that we can like help that will help influence your story? If not, are there any references we can make? Like what's happening in your story that we can maybe like touch on or do a one-line reference to that will be like, oh, there's these other things are happening. So I like that idea. I think it, to me, feels different than what Marvel is doing, because Marvel, I feel like it's very much Kevin Feige sitting down with the filmmakers and saying, this is what we're building towards.
This is our arc.
This is the next piece of the pie.
Yeah.
Does this interest you?
I'm sure it's different now. And I feel like a lot of the Marvel directors do sort of like talk to each other.
Oh,
I don't
for
know.
sure.
I don't know if they.
yeah.
I don't know if they share and like
Right.
contribute, but like. I
But they have
remember
set
when,
visits all the time with the directors.
This is like the dark age of the Marvel Studios timeline so far. But like when Alan Taylor directed Thor: The Dark World, and James Gunn came in to direct the post-credit scene, and Alan Taylor was like, "Yeah, I didn't direct that. That didn't fit with my movie. It was too funny and weird."
Yeah.
And it was like, it was bad blood. It was that was definitely like the studio decision of like, you know, do this and do that and do that and do that, instead of like, why don't y'all talk to each other?
Yeah.
I mean, and
Y'all figure it out.
This could also give somebody else, like, somebody could maybe show that they have that kind of mind. Like, if they come in and they knock it out with Aquaman and say, but look, listen, I have some ideas, and somebody could come out of the woodworks and be that person who can sort of start connecting the threads, because it's a tough position for somebody to come in and say, be Kevin Feige. You be Kevin Feige now. Like, this is what we need now.
Day one starts now.
Yeah, exactly.
I would
like,
love
imagine
that
that
job.
I know you would love that
that
job.
job.
I know, but imagine the kind of
tough.
pressure that is on you.
Because it's not just creative; it's also financial.
Absolutely.
There's so much stuff that I'm sure he has to deal with that, like, it's nowhere near the scale that we even think about.
But the way you just said it, it's not creative; it's financial. I'm
Right.
like, Warner Brothers should have a financial person
Yes.
to go, okay, we've crunched the numbers. This movie about this character will release on this date.
I'm
That's
sure-
when you bring in
I'm
the
sure
creative.
I'm sure
But
they have that.
I think
Yeah.
I think that's what John Berg and Jeff Johns were.
Okay.
right.
And that's now been disbanded, and
Right.
I don't really know what the
Sure.
what that
but
whole
I
system is now.
feel
but
like
yeah.
a guy like Kevin can compartmentalize his brain so much that he can know a little bit about that financial stuff and spit kind of these figures out for people who need those numbers or that information really
enough
quickly,
to cancel Guardians 3.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And enough to be like, you know what? Well, like this, if you make this decision, I feel like he can think 5 steps ahead.
Plus, I think the advantage that Kevin Feige also has is that he's got a producing team that is consistent from movie to movie to movie with Victoria Alonso
Visual effects.
and the other producer
Louis
D'Esposito. So I feel like he has like this team, this core team that he always works with, and I think him being more of the creative of like, how do we fit this together? Obviously also financial, but then having a team of like 2 to 3 people who are like, cool, monetarily, this is what we could be doing.
Exactly. Those
creatively,
are the
this is where we're at.
Who bring on
Exactly.
other stuff that
So
he doesn't have the
delegate.
bandwidth.
Exactly.
Baby.
So I feel like
Delegate.
I feel like DC Warner kind of needs that as well. I don't think it's one person. I think Kevin Feige is just the best representative of the brand.
Exactly.
But I think it still needs to
it's
be
a
like a
team.
little team.
And I feel like right now, this is the perfect opportunity for somebody in DC to come and
Agreed.
step up and be
Agreed.
that person,
Yeah.
not necessarily have all the pressure that Kevin Feige has, have a little bit more freedom to say, hey, we can connect this, this, and this, but we have to do it in this many steps. It's
Yeah.
not necessarily like mash them up again. It's
Yeah.
like put in the work.
If this was easy, everybody would be doing it.
Well,
sure.
Absolutely.
You know,
Exactly.
and you're totally right that now is this time. If they felt like they're crossing a corner, and who knows, like you were saying, we don't know the behind the scenes. Maybe there are comic book people.
Exactly.
Maybe Jeff Johns is supplying information or an idea, and maybe those kinds of maybe comic book ties. They're people that are too close to it, that they can't separate and go, well, that works for comics, that might not work for the movies.
Right.
And maybe there's movie people that aren't listening to the right sort of person to go, here's the perfect blend of comics and movies. Here's the perfect blend of, maybe the idea that we just came up with, the sort of time skip idea. Maybe a comic book person would go like, no, you can't do that. You have to introduce Hal Jordan. And it's like, and they're like stuck on it. They're like, you have to do Hal Jordan. It has to be before Jon Stewart. Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Maybe that's happening, and movie people are just like, okay, if you say so. Or maybe movie people are putting their eggs in the wrong baskets.
Yeah.
It's such a tough thing because for decades, us fans of this stuff have said, just get Bruce Timm. Just get, get
Paul
animation
Dini,
people, Paul Dini in there.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, they work for Animation Brain. They honestly, they might come in and have a pitch, and it'll be like, this is not working for what we
live
have.
Action, yeah.
Everything
Hey,
else live action.
Don't you say those words ever again.
I know, man, but it's
You're a disgusting
again,
person.
If this was easy to do, everybody would be doing it.
you're right,
We'd have
you're
a
right.
Nintendo cinematic universe. we'd have had Hobbs and Shaw 8 years ago as a Fast and Furious spin-off. The Mummy would have worked
With Roman Reigns as his brother.
Yeah, all of this stuff would have people like it's easy to plug this stuff together, but movie is just different language than what we're used to.
Right.
So a lot of these people, I know Jeff Johns has a lot of sway with like CW TV stuff.
Yeah.
That's a different ball game. So we're seeing Jeff Johns just like crush it, like do this, CW, boom, success.
Got
and it's
it,
like that's different parameters than whatever we have going over here. So I don't know. Maybe they are hearing pitches, and it's like maybe that right person hasn't come in that has that right.
That's what I'm thinking.
Because again, they had a direction before, and they've veered from that because that direction was a direction. But for a lot of different reasons, it didn't hit with audiences, and it wasn't making that financial boom, and it wasn't, and that's why it took forever before we got new Transformers, because for whatever reason, that direction was making money.
Yeah.
Those movies that were racist and sexist and offensive and crude and gross, that had the word Transformers on them, were making money, especially overseas. So it's like, why fix it? It's like, okay, sure.
That's all we want, just money.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
But
All
that,
right.
but that would be such a crazy job, though.
I know.
I'm into that idea.
I'm into it too.
I think
maybe we should do it.
Handling the
I
DC
think
universe.
they should just hire all three of us.
Remember we had that whiteboard?
I know. We're shills. We're Disney shills.
Disney.
We're Disney
We're paid by
shills. I
Disney.
forgot.
Sorry, I
Cut.
forgot.
Thanks
that
for
we're-
reminding
Speaking of
us,
that, let's
Zach.
pay some bills. No, I'm just kidding.
I know, right?
But that's going to wrap it up for us, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for listening. Jump into the comments, whether it's on SoundCloud, iTunes, or on YouTube, and let us know what you think about all the topics that we discussed. If you were in charge of the next generation of the building of the DC universe, what would you do? I watched a really cool video on YouTube of someone of a young kid. He's like 20 or something. He wasn't fully aware of Batman and Superman. He liked the DCEU. Then he went back, he read some New 52 stuff, and he went, holy shit, these characters have been done a huge disservice. And he rewrites the story of the DC cinematic universe his way.
I like
and
that
doing
stuff.
Superman. And I thought it was really, really
Hypotheticals
good.
are
So
fun.
I would love to hear your guys' hypotheticals on how you would remake or redo, or where would you take the DC universe next?
Which
Are our ideas
characters?
good?
Yeah.
What characters do you want to see?
Yeah.
Overall, I'm very excited about all the other stuff we talked about Shazam. Let us know in the comments below how you feel about everything, and we will catch you guys in next week's episode. Bye.